and welcome. Today's guest has been called a cosmic catalyst, a maverick mischief maker, and a galactic goofball. He redefines how business is played in the 21st century at the intersection of evolutionary growth, impact, and fun. He is the creator of the Cosmic Journal, the author of Evolved Enterprise, and the founder of Maverick 1000, a global collective of visionary entrepreneurs making a serious difference in the world without taking themselves too seriously. An avid doodler and a steadfast proponent of adding more purposeful play into your life, he delights in keeping things weird, wonderful, and full of wonderment. A firm believer that we all have our own cosmic alarm clock that goes off at exactly the right time to fulfill our destiny of greatness, he has spent his life exploring that connection of head, heart, and highest purpose. Please welcome Yanik Silver to the show.
Woo!
Welcome, Yanik.
Hey, Ellie.
It's so good to have you here. Thank you for being with us today. Self-care is absolutely critical, right? You can't be present. You can't go out there and serve at the level that you do. You can't each one teach one or continue to light 1,000 suns
Right.
if you yourself are running on empty. So what are some of your self-care practices?
Yeah, one big thing is journaling. That's one of my favorite practices that I've used for years and years. It was a sporadic practice for a while, and then it became a daily. And for me, I love journaling because it's been scientifically proven to make us happier. It brings more awareness into our lives. It's just and the deeper you go with it, the deeper you'll get. So it's not like, oh, I had a chicken sandwich for lunch today. Like, that's not very interesting. That's not really journaling. But if you can, so typically I'll write before bed. So I have a particular spot and I will just write. And what I start writing about is usually not the same thing even that I end up writing about, but it's just a process of expressive writing that gives us more happiness because it creates a beginning, a middle, and then end to whatever story or whatever we're bringing awareness to on that page. And so I love journaling. I think it's such a great practice. And so many people have tried it or given up on it, or like, well, I don't want anyone else to read it, or whatever the case is. And there's a lot of ways of getting through that, where you could lock it up if you want, or hide it, or do, or write in code, or really, it's really meant for you. So the deeper you go in it, the better. And I like experiments, Ellie, like, it could be trying one thing, and, you don't have to try 8 things at once. That makes it really hard. But say, okay, I'm going to try an experiment of, I like 33 days. It's a specific number. It's beyond the month. It could be 21 days, whatever it is, but every single day, and you give yourself a window, an easy way to win. It could be a 10-minute or 15-minute window where you're like, I'm just going to journal. I'm going to try this, and then see at the end of that time period, does that make my life any better or not? So those are big ones. Making sure that you have time just for yourself. And I'm, getting better at this. It's something I want to do even more, but there is some guilt sometimes when I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take an entire day off and just go, hang out by the river and go paddleboarding and not do anything else. The big thing also is the phone and electronics, like turning that off and just having times when you can do that. So I like bigger moments. So, again, back to our cycles in nature, like, so equinox is coming up. Typically I do like a 3-day juice cleanse leading up to equinox. And then equinox, I'll go out into the woods and just spend time really just reconnecting again. So each of the times, solstice, equinox, there's usually a bigger kind of connection period for me.
That is amazing. You're so fortunate to live somewhere where you can actually get out into nature. But, I think even if someone is living in an area where they don't necessarily have woods, to your point earlier with our phones and all of the devices that we have,
Yeah,
there's so many apps, there's visualization apps, there's, they can put on backgrounds and envision that they are in these places that bring them joy or peace, or in these restorative moments.
Right. And it's also, so I live in a suburb area where, we have some woods, but it's not like a big, like, there in our neighborhood, there's like a little patch of woods and a little bamboo forest, but anything could be this magical place. And so I go into the bamboo forest where no one really goes to. It's like behind a couple houses, and I sit there and I meditate, or I go to this little tiny creek by there. But then 10, 15 minutes away is a much bigger, nicer river, and I'll go there for the entire day. And so, usually most people are 20 minutes, a half hour from something, even if it's a little park, just a little oasis that you can have. But yeah, and also, like you said, there's opportunities daily to visualize and put yourself in those states. And you can literally be, anywhere in a cramped apartment and be somewhere else, because it's all about what is the meaning and what is your own way of connecting that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's one thing that you wish one of your mentors had taken you aside and told you that you had to learn the hard way?
Oh, that's a good question, because there's, it's so interesting, because I think that every single thing that happened is in the perfect way, so that it's set up this perfect curriculum, and of course, you're like, when you go through the hard times, you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to go through that. But everyone who comes out the other side, and we all do, it's like those hard times make you, and they, like, for me, that created so much more empathy for other people and leaders and entrepreneurs, and I think what I would like to have maybe known or heard about, at least so I knew that this was the path going forward, and I see this with so many entrepreneurs I work with, is that no matter what is success, quote unquote, from the outside, that there's usually another layer, another level. And if you have to typically give up something, some part of your identity, some part of something, so that you can take that next leap to the next cycle, to that next point. And that next cycle is usually doesn't feel so comfortable, because it's usually something different that's not the same thing that got you to where you are, is going to take you to this next spot of really continuing to fully align with your heart, higher purpose. And it's usually going to be like this intuitive, magical leap that makes sometimes no logical sense whatsoever. But it's so rewarding out the other side, and it's so magical. So if maybe someone has shown me, it's really hard to have someone say, here's what you need to do. But if hey, this is probably going to happen, then that would have been a really great thing to hear about.
Yeah, agreed. Sometimes knowing to get comfortable being uncomfortable, or sometimes knowing that when you get to that next level and you're right there, and you know that you need to stretch, you need to reach. I loved your point about sometimes you need to let go of an identity that you held, or a part of your identity that has gotten you to where you are, in order to get where you want to go. I think sometimes, or especially entrepreneurs, we might be conditioned to hold on, push through, hold on, push through,
Yeah.
hold on. And so I think that notion of letting go
It's
is
super
a really
powerful.
powerful.
Yeah, and think of it as cycles, right? So we keep coming back to things that we loved, especially as kids. Like, there's this golden age of, like, let's say 8 to about 13, or 15 maybe, where you look at things that you really love. Like, for me, it was being a class clown, and parodies, and being goofy, and then just, fun little mischievous things and so forth. And it keeps sort of coming back over and over again in a higher essence. And the other part of this is, think about, like, cycles. Like nature always has so much to teach us if we pay attention. So there's a cycle of the seasons, right? There's spring, summer, fall, winter. Spring is this birth or rebirth, and then summer is this celebratory. Things are just increasing, and the energy is increasing. And then fall is the harvest time, and then winter is the time of death, or just going back inward, and then so that you can be reborn in a higher way. And so if you go and think about that in your own cycles of business and your own cycles of life, that's really important. As you're saying, Ellie, like, so many times we just want to keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. And that's just saying, okay, we want to just be in summer all the time. And that's not possible. So allowing yourself that natural cycle.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, and a really powerful reminder to look to nature and think of it as cycles. I mean, we can't have rebirth without death. We can't grow without letting go and making space for that next level. So that's a really powerful framework that the audience can use, and they can ask, am I in winter? What season am I in right now?
And
Where
it's going
am
to
I
come
in
to
my
you.
journey?
Like it's going to happen no matter what, because, so many times we get bonked on the head. I call this the universe sort of, continuing to bonk us on the head harder and harder and harder. Like for me, it was okay. $400,000 is enough to be like, all right, well, I think there's, I need to do something different here. I have a friend that was like 4 million. So it could be financial, it could be relationship, it could be health wise. But if you have joy as your sort of GPS that you're continually being attracted to, and then to me are like obstacles and pain are these guardrails, and we keep moving this way. So a lot of times we look at obstacles and be like, oh, I wish I didn't have this. But obstacles and pain are a lot of times the things that keep us moving. And so if you're in alignment, you're going to move much smoother through this. Otherwise, you're going to have these really big, massive bonks on the head, and it'll get harder and harder until you pay attention. I think it was Nietzsche who said, like, you can go through any how or something like that if you have a deep enough why. And the why was never originally to build an adventure travel company. That was just that expression, but the essence of it was to change the way business is played. And so we've really changed that. And that was a huge part, is like going deeper and deeper into the why of what you're doing, because that's going to allow you to show up and keep showing up. Because business and everything, all of life is really this cyclical movement like this, and being able to see that there is going to be another cycle and another path that opens up.
So piggybacking on really harnessing that why, the more that your why was crystallized, is that the true definition of success to you? Is having that clarity about your why, and then actually leaning into that to do your greatest work in the world?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. I think it's being clear on your purpose, being clear on what is that gift that you want to share first with yourself. And that was another big thing, was continuing to work. And I know this is a lot of your work, because so much of it, when I started looking at where I was like, yeah, I like myself, but I don't think I loved myself. And so much of it was uncovering shadow aspects of different parts of myself, and looking at, okay, you have there's the gift is always mixed in with the shadow part as well. So it was looking at, I really think of myself as a catalyst site and catalyzing other catalysts. And it was like, okay, but what's the shadow aspect of that? It was starting a lot of things and not always finishing. And it was like, okay, looking at that part, looking at, why didn't I want to give 100%? Why didn't I want to go all in on something? And that was a big one. And then I could trace those patterns literally back to school, where I'd be like the last one into a test in college, probably even before that, where, I'd borrow a pencil. I had been out the night before drinking or whatever, coming in hungover, I'd be like, whatever. And I'd be the first one out, and I get like a solid like B minus, whatever it was. But I could always get through that way. But that was a really deep insight of like, okay, what does it look like to go all in? Because it was scary for me to start looking at like being all in for something. So continuing to unravel all these deeper parts of ourself. And there's so many great healing modalities and all sorts of things where, from the meditation, from that kind of insight work, from sometimes ceremonial work was a really, really big one, working with different elders and wisdom keepers. So all of it was really powerful. And then also being like following your heart. I think that's a huge one. So I talk about, connecting your head, which is your business side, your marketing side, whatever it is, to your heart, which is the impact you want to make in the world. And then your higher purpose, like, why the heck are you here? And to me, that would probably be the biggest definition of success, is just honoring that and creating more of that alignment.
Amazing. As we start to wrap up here, let's piggyback on that ripple effect. Let's imagine that you've surpassed your 111-year-old self. You are now coming to the end of your life, and it's been the life best lived. You have lit 1,000 suns who are lighting 1,000 suns who are lighting 1,000 suns, and your ripple effect has been profound. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want them to say about you?
Well, that's a good question. At the end of the day, it just to me feels like if if we could have had some fun together, if there's some good funny stories about some random things that we did together and instigated a bit of mischief and fun that turned into something meaningful and impactful. That's what I'd love to know and hear, like the stories, the fun, the impact. So many times, and I've felt this way many times. It's like you don't know exactly the effect that you're having with people, and so what I've tried to do even more so is go back to someone that might never have known that they had an impact in my life. Like I remember writing a letter back to my fourth grade and sixth grade teacher. I had the same teacher for 2 years, and she was like one of the first people that really saw me for who I am, and that kind of mischievousness, but also, that light that wants to make the world better. And she really encouraged that in her own way. And I wrote her a note, and she said it was like one of the most meaningful things that she ever received. And I found her on Facebook. And so, if I could, get a small little fraction of that back, that's really, really powerful to hear how I've changed people's lives. But more so, maybe even making that a call to action or a homework assignment for anyone to maybe write a note, not a text, but an actual note, ideally a handwritten note to somebody that's made a difference in your life, and show them how they've made a difference, because it has such the ripple of impact that way.
I love that. And yes, everyone out there, think of somebody who has made a difference in your life. Pull out a pen and a piece of paper, or crayons or markers, and doodle as Yanik loves to do, and just let them know how they've
Yeah.
impacted you. Let them know what that word, that encouraging word, or that belief that they held in you, or them seeing you, the difference that's made. I think that's really, really powerful.
It's amazing, and the handwritten notes are just so powerful, especially in this digital age. It makes such all the difference in the world. And I've kind of upgraded my own notes, where now I have like a fun little seal that has the cosmic lightning bolt logo on it. But I love that kind of stuff, and it just reminds me every single time I have a note that's sent out to someone how meaningful it is. I remember one of our Maverick members, she told me like a note that I had sent her, like literally was sitting on her desk, and I had never known that, just because it was it's just you never know.
Yeah.
And of course, this cosmic journal is a great way of getting into my world, and really, when I hand it to people, I say this is the galactic instruction manual you were missing when you were born to fulfill your destiny here. So that's a great way of getting into the world, and it works like an oracle. So we can pop open a page. All right, I'm gonna see what. Here we go. Here's a perfect ending for us. And
Yes.
I'll read that if you want, if we have time for that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. That feels like a pretty perfect one. So, again, this works like an oracle. And so I just pulled this page, and it says, "Dare greatly. What would be felt 300 years from now? Your greatest work stands the power of the centuries. What are you doing that will truly create your legendary legacy?" So the D in dare, the D stands for discover. Discover what you are uniquely designed to do here. Your greatest journey is truly understanding your divine combination of skills, talents, natural attributes, past experiences. A, activate. Activate your unique genius. Stand in your voice and power of who you were meant to be. Accelerate it. Step forward and proclaim your place. R, remember. Remember who you are, a perfect and infinite spiritual being experiencing this time and space, because you chose it for your growth. Remember your true mission here, why you came. And the E is evolve. Take your biggest dream for the greatest collective and follow it. What is your next chapter that will dwarf everything up to this point, utilizing what you've already built and achieved? So dare greatly, D-A-R-E.
That couldn't be more perfect as a way to take us home. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Before we sign off, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
I think that's it. Really look for that magic and the synchronicity. I love that. It's it really is kind of a wink from the universe across time and space about if you're on the right path or not, and just start being more aware of that. And that's why tools like the Cosmic Journal are really fun to play with, because it allows you to step into that higher self of where you're meant to be going, and then start listening to things. It could be numbers that are activation numbers. It could be songs. It could be, who knows, something that's meaningful to you. And these synchronicities, like those are these real taps from the universe for sure about, okay, what pay attention over here, not maybe over here, and then see, especially if it doesn't totally make logical sense. That's always a good one too. And that takes a bit of a leap of faith and just to see what happens, because there's nothing worse than, having 10, 20, 50 years go by and be like, oh, I wish I had done this. Or I really felt in my heart that I wanted to make this just impression in the world, or this, this gift that I wanted to share. But I was always a little bit too scared, or it's never the right time. It's never going to be the right time. It's just, we can always have so many excuses. So just see what you can do.
The time is now, right? The time is now.
Time is now, and the time is always now, and the time is now. Absolutely.
The time is now. Just do it.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you? How can they contact you? How can they be part of the adventures that you form, or the organizations that you helm?
Well, I think that, for entrepreneurs who are leaders in their field, they can check out maverick1000.com. So the number 1000. I also blog every once in a while at yaniksilver.com. And I'm fairly, I don't know, I'm not super active, but on Instagram is probably the place that I'm most active-ish. So at Yanik Silver.
Thank you so much, Yanik.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks for having me on.
Till
Really
next
appreciate
time.
it.